We shift our focus westwards, where the US is now turning up the heat on outsourcing. That's correct. A new bill called the Hire Act proposes a 25% tax on payments to foreign workers, aiming to push American companies to keep jobs at home. At least that's the claim that we are getting. Now, if passed, this could directly impact India's $250 billion IT industry, which earns over half of its revenue from US clients. Major players, moreover, like TCS, Infosys and Wipro, could see rising costs and shrinking contracts. While the US hopes to boost local jobs, Indian tech leaders warn this move may just hurt innovation and global competitiveness. My colleague Vishal Vivek joins me for more on this. Vishal, what is this proposed Hire Act all about, and what are its likely implications going to be?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, Arjun, this is still in a proposal stage. It will have to go through a series of proposals to get it to the final stage and be implemented. We are far from that stage, but still it has sent shivers down the spine of many US firms that hire outsource workers from the US to the Indian territory. So what this bill will do is it will make outsourcing more expensive. And why is that? Because any firm that is willing to hire workers from outside the US territory will have to pay a 25% tax. So that will be quite heavy on their financial strain, and also IT companies will be directly affected because Indian IT companies are known to be in contact with the US firms for these outsourcing duties. So IT firms in India will be most definitely affected, and this will completely stop the complete stoppage of outsourcing will be quite difficult. This is what experts have been suggesting, analysts have been suggesting, that even though this act will be implemented soon, but the fact that completely stopping outsourcing will be quite difficult. Why is that? Because scale of Indian talent can't be matched by US workforce. So the majority of these high-skilled workers belong to the Asian continent, particularly to India and China. So to just replace them overnight won't be practical. So that scale of talent won't be available as far as the domestic US crowd is concerned. So the implementation of this act will be quite difficult. And lastly, US firms will find it hard to manage large-scale operations because a lot of these big tech companies such as Meta, such as Google, Microsoft, they all depend on these outsourced Indian workers who contribute a lot to their revenue, to their workforce. So to just remove such a big chunk of their workforce will be quite detrimental to their overall progress, and hence the application of this act would be quite difficult. So this is what we have so far, but we'll have to see how this will play out in the longer run, because we are still in the proposal stage, as you rightly mentioned.
Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest there, Vishal, and putting these developments into perspectives. Further, we are also joined by Jayant and Kola. He's a partner at Convergence Catalyst. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with us this Tuesday afternoon, Mr. Kola. Now, how practical, let me ask you off the bat, how very practical is it for US companies to altogether completely stop outsourcing to India?
In the short to medium term, it's not practical at all. Just like your colleague Vivek was mentioning, they cannot do this overnight because for more than a generation, the US companies have been dependent on various IT outsourcing destinations, primarily of that India, right? And what they find is not just the talented Indian workforce, but we Indians are great at our communication skills as well, mind you. I mean, 150 of us speak English extremely well, right? So, and it's apart from the cost component. So in the short to medium term, it will be difficult for the US companies to completely, stop outsourcing to India. What this bill will ensure is it will make things costlier, because what we've observed with the manufacturing tariff, that came in the apparel sector, what we are seeing is the US companies, the US brands, the US buyers are asking their manufacturing vendors in India to absorb the tariff, while at the same time increasing the cost for the retail consumer there, right? So this tax bill, might also actually in practice, in the short to medium term, lead to that. It might make the services in US costlier for the end consumer.
Now, we spoke about the impact on the US. What impact will this have on India? We've got IT industry giants warning of a detrimental impact to the Indian industry as well. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, out of the $250 billion, our exports are 80% of it. $200 billion is our software exports business, and a huge chunk of that to the US market. If this bill goes through, there will be a detrimental effect for the Indian companies, Indian IT services companies, definitely, because that tax might be passed on directly to for the Indian IT companies to absorb a huge chunk of it. If we are seeing the same parallels to draw out how we've seen in the manufacturing and the apparel industry to draw parallel from, right? And we do not know if it will be only for the different companies like IT outsourcing companies, Infosys, TCS, it will be affected, or the GCCs as well, the global capability centers, wherein the global companies are setting up their own outsourcing centers here in India. Will they be affected or not? But in the short to medium term, there is definitely going to be an impact on the Indian companies from their bottom line point of view. Okay, from their bottom line, definitely. And Indian companies need to look for different countries, different markets, including the domestic market, to focus their revenue generation and divert their revenue generation on.
Right. What about the long run? How will this, may I say, affect or rather hurt US innovation and even competitiveness in the long run? Short run, we just heard from you. What about the long run?
In the long run, this is another spoke in the multipolarity world wheel, right? I think all the countries are gearing up for that. I mean, we've seen when when we've been hit by tariff, our leaders attended the SEO summit and tried to expand our GDP and businesses there. So in the long run, there is going to be an impact. At the end of the day, this is another spoke in the multipolarity world that we seem to be that seems to be evolving on all fronts. I mean, geopolitically, economically, socially, on all fronts. And it will also probably see a lot of brain drain from India, a lot of migration from India for people to US, because it will be very difficult for US to come up with a workforce in less than a generation to offset this. So they will be dependent on the migrant workforce, wherein we will see that a lot of Indian workforce might be migration. So there'll be a lot of migratory impact as well in the long term.
So it'll take Washington around a generation to come up with such workers, opines Mr. Kola. Mr. Kola, my last question to you, we're running out of time here. How should the Indian IT firms or the IT sector, strategically respond if this higher act, in fact, does end up becoming a law, as we've seen all kinds of laws under this Trump 2.0 administration?
In the short term, be prepared to absorb some of these bottom line impact, while at the same time frantically working for looking at other markets, including the domestic market, to move their revenue generation to. In the short to medium term, that's the strategy that they need to adopt, which I think is going to be the reality one way or the other.
Well, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us here on
Thanks,
India
Arjun.
Global, Mr. Kola.